So, all right. So here we are. It's Everything Dog Talk. And we have Robert. Can you pronounce your last name, please? Because I'm very American and I don't say it right.
Giglio. The second G is silent. Giglio.
Giglio. There you go. Because I'm always like Gig. Calling you Gig.
Yeah, that was
Better than Jig.
a nickname in high school, Jigs.
That works.
Storm, stop.
Oh, show us Storm. Come on. There you go. Storm. Don't tell Storm to stop. I mean, how could you stop?
And I got the other one behind her.
Who looks gorgeous? Who is that? This doesn't show these people's names.
Let me go back to chat. Hold on.
Rob, I have a feeling that we're going to really exceed the time limit because you and I were supposed to do a trial run for about 5 minutes and we ended up at like an hour and 15.
Yeah.
One of us should have taken our ADD meds that day, but you know, it's me, Facebook user. It's me. It's, is that, I guess that's Denise. Okay. So anyway, all right. So here we are. And so we've got Robert,
Giglio.
Yeah. And so Rob, why don't you, like people on Long Island in the dog community know who you are. But, if other people are seeing this broadcast, they're going to be like, who the hell is this guy? What does he do? So you want to give like a brief synopsis, maybe of like, how you started, why you love dogs, how, as a kid, all that stuff.
A long time ago, I grew up with shepherds. We bred shepherds, not for sale, but for my dad imported one from Germany, and his friend imported another one. Good genetics and everything. And when he was old enough, we bred, and then we took the son, and all relatives or friends took the rest of the litter. We had the male. The female went through another 2 or 3 litters, and that was it. It wasn't done for profit. It was just done you had a good quality shepherd imported. And that's where I initially started. And from then on, it was any animal, actually, not just dogs. Just showed a large interest in them. And,
where did you grow up?
Westbury, Long Island.
Oh, so it was. Okay, Long Island. Okay, all right.
Yeah, Westbury, Long Island. And then growing up, as they got old, there was a period of time where we didn't have any dogs. And then when I got old enough, even before I owned my own dogs, I was training on the side just by reading. And, we had a relative that was also a military canine trainer and learned a lot from him. And the different style training from what my approach is today. Some trainers still use that approach where it's aversive punishment, prong collars, shock collars,
leash
pops, pop under the jaw, scruffing, alpha rolls. That was the primary type of training. The only training, actually. There wasn't really positive reinforcement till the mid 80s.
Yeah.
And so I ended up helping people train their dogs, nothing official. And I ended up by word of mouth, just growing. And
can I just say really quick, Adopt-A-Boxer Nadine is giving you a shout out, saying how much they love you.
Hey, Nadine.
Oh, and Leslie Solomon wants you to describe what a leash pop is.
A leash pop is basically when the dog misbehaves, you're correcting it, you're yanking it. A quick pop.
Yeah.
And you look at some of the people that even do it, the right tools. That's the description for the trainers and dog owners that still use this method. A lot of them aren't even using it correctly, even though I don't agree with using it all. They're just popping without even giving any notice. And the dog doesn't realize
just scaring the dog, basically.
Yep.
Scaring him to do what they want. Yeah.
So,
Which can we just add really quick for people, that don't really know that whole alpha thing and dominance theory was actually debunked by the same guy that started the theory, right?
correct.
So like, that's not even like, if you believe in science and like real behavior, like those things aren't like even a real thing, right?
No, the same. You're correct. The same gentleman that originally coined the phrase, it was misproven. So actually, it was misproven years later, and it's unfortunate because a lot of people followed that basis based on his research, and it actually led people in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
You see a lot of people trying to dominate over their dog, being in control. The dog has to do this. They're not letting
Pack leader. You hear
Yeah.
pack leader a lot. Yeah.
And I was guilty of the same thing till about 1990. I mean, I used all of these methods, and did they work? Yes. The problem is the dog succumbs to your power, and that's not a way to train. To
Right.
train now, you learn, just like us, anything we enjoy doing, we're more likely to repeat. It goes for any animal, any person. If we don't enjoy it, we don't do it. So, but if it's fun for us and we enjoy it, we're more likely to repeat it, whether it's a
So
behavior.
that's where the positive reinforcement comes from. And let's face it, like when you go to the zoo and stuff, they're not like, most of them, I can't speak for all of them, but right, like well-known reputable zoos, like if you go and, or even like the marinas and stuff, with the aquariums, they're all teaching seals with all this fish. They just keep throwing them fish. Yay, it's fish. We love it.
And dolphins. I mean, it was all the dolphins, the whales, everything was done on positive reinforcement, on reward. It was all reward based.
Right.
The only punishment they would do is they would give them timeouts.
Right.
Basically, they would put them in a pen. Sometimes they couldn't get the dolphins or the killer whales to perform, and they were in a mood. Sometimes they're in a mood, and there wasn't any punishment involved. The punishment was they would remove them.
Right.
Basically, a timeout.
Right.
And it's like us. Sometimes, even a dog, sometimes they're not in a mood. Sometimes they'll act up. You can't sweat the small stuff. If it's an aggressive issue, yes. But I mean, with your basic obedience, it all depends on how far you want to go with the training. I try and train my dogs every day as far as socialization and interaction. That's the most important for me because I don't want them biting anybody, and I want them getting along with all dogs. So,
Rob, I'm going to interrupt you for a sec because I want to try to stay on target. I would love to talk with you more about like just training, but we got it. But we have to. So that's cool. So you're a crossover trainer, right? You come from balanced, and now you are positive based.
I wouldn't even call it balanced back then. It was all punishment. It was the Monks of New Skeet was one of the renowned books that everyone used to read, and another one was I forgot his name, Conrad. I mean, these were the books that because they trained German shepherds and the difficult breeds, and the monks used to be able to. You can still do that. You can send your dog off to them, and it was punishment based. Mostly punishment based. And one of the excerpts was, if you don't hear the dog yelping, and I'm not sure if it's the exact wording, then you haven't punished it enough. Basically, you want the dog to yelp or make a noise, and that's when you know you've punished it, you corrected it. And they did a second rendition of the book where I believe they left it out. I didn't read the second one yet.
Somebody's saying that people are still reading the monks books, and you know what? That's because there's no regulations on trainers. So it's like just a free for all. It's like, I mean, it's incredible. We're not going to go there right now, Rob, because I could go on and on about this. About who's paying, $300 and let me abuse your dog, or, $1,700 for 2 weeks and I'll send it back to you with a button and your dog. Yeah. So that's a whole other thing.
I'm having a little audio issue with your voice. Is anybody else? It's coming in very metallic.
Oh, that was happening with Ginny for some reason. But Focus. Denise is telling us to focus. You're going to have to just deal with it, Rob. Hopefully it'll change.
Okay.
Actually, let me turn off my laptop because it might be picking up too much Wi-Fi. So, Denise says everything is loud and clear. So I think that somehow it's just between me and you. When I did the playback with Ginny from the last one, I heard it during like the filming, but I didn't hear it afterwards on the playback. So,
Okay.
so anyway, so all right, so you came from all that training and you love dogs and like what happened?
I got involved years ago. This is going back 20 years ago. I did a little bit of volunteering at, honestly, I don't even remember what shelter it was, but it was mostly just like helping cleaning up after the dogs and things like that. But then I got more involved with rescues. You know, I was aware of the New York State Retriever Rescue. Initially, I was just helping with local transports, and I started to became more knowledgeable that I trained the dogs because I really didn't want to go full time into it because I was working. I had a full time job,
Real job.
a union job, a construction job, and basically, if I can do a little bit of work on the weekends or during the week, great. If I can go pick up the dogs that were coming off a transport, great. So I got involved, and then I did a couple of events. It became more and more known that I train dogs too. So they asked me some of the rescues asked me to evaluate dogs.
Okay.
And when I first did it, you know, I was helping do evaluations and meet and greets. And if any of the fosters were having a behavior issue with the rescue dog before it was adopted, I'd go over there and try and help them. I used to do it pro bono. I wasn't charging them anything. And that's why I got involved with, I met fur babies at I think it was an dog epilepsy event, and they were actually inside the Petco doing an adoption event.
Okay. Yeah.
I met all the K's, Kristen, Karen, Kimberly, Karen, Kristen.
Yeah.
And
Great group of girls.
What?
It's a great group of girls. They really, yeah.
Very nice. Very, very well run rescue too. And my friend also was involved with the retriever rescue, doing local stuff. And then I got involved with them and did initially short transports, adoption events, and then it went to training, evaluations. I had Memphis at the time. Memphis, I did dog tests with him, hundreds of dogs, whether it's evaluating or training fearful dogs and aggressive dogs, and Memphis was great at doing that. Then, as of recently, so I went to training, and that's when I did it full time. I went into doing it full time because I couldn't do the construction anymore.
Okay.
The body couldn't take it, so that's when, and it just so happened it was a little bit before all these social media groups, dog groups opened up, and the timing was right. My name grew with the work I was doing for the rescues, that the dog groups were recommending me, my name, and then the shelters too, where I would actually evaluate some of the dogs that we were pulling from the shelters. And then all of a sudden my name was on the moms groups, which I didn't know how they got on there. And I ended up.
You're talking about like the social media, like Facebook groups and stuff like that. You're talking about, yeah. That's where, like, you know, everybody that I know, you know, met you from. You know, it was you know, from all the social media stuff.
I don't know if I actually met them first through the social media groups like Fur Babies, or it was just at an event that we happened to be doing. Same thing with the retriever rescue. I know my friend was doing it there. But so then I went full time into the training, and it was I enjoyed working with the dogs. I'm not.
I put a question up for you from Nadine.
Okay, hold on. I got to go to chat.
You know, do you see it on me? Like, look on me. Do you see it there?
Oh, hold on. Uh,
Hold on, Nadine.
oh, there you are. Yeah. I am doing evaluations when I come to Long Island on transports. And I still do clients.
All right, so we're jumping around. So at some point,
Okay.
right, you lived on Long Island, you were doing all this rescue stuff, you had a real job, and then,
Was married.
well, we don't have to get into that part.
Well,
If
that's
you
what
want
caused
to,
me,
that's fine.
that's what caused me to move down to Florida was divorce.
Okay, fine. Okay.
So, I had the house I inherited down here. I went down here, and instead of starting over with training, rebuilding, building up the reputation again, I spoke to some of the rescue groups about transporting. And
Because at that point you lived in Florida, right? And so places like Fur Babies and even Adopt-A-Box or
oh, I lost your volume. What happened? Hold on.
dogs from other states and stuff.
Yeah, most of the rescues were, a lot of the rescues were pulling dogs from down south, whether it was the Carolinas, Georgia, Florida, a lot of them from Louisiana, Alabama.
Yeah.
And I also didn't like the way that some of the transports were transporting the dogs. Some of them came in, well, I don't want to go into details, just it wouldn't have been the way I want to be in with the dogs, being able to hear sound, hear them, see them, smell them in case of an accident, where not all the transporters were transporting that way.
Okay.
They had no idea
I've heard of stuff like sometimes they're in the trunks and stuff like that, and
well, in trailers, and that's not a way. And you can't have somebody in the
like an
trailer.
attached trailer, just like a U-Haul thing, like.
Yeah, it was air conditioned. They'd had sensors, but there's no one in there with them.
Right.
And if they are in there with them, they're not supposed to be. You're not supposed to ride in the back of a trailer,
Yeah.
like a
Yeah.
tractor trailer or a cargo trailer or anything like that. So I wanted to do it via a van. Actually, the first vehicle I bought was a shuttle bus. You know, the shuttle buses at the airport.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
I didn't research it enough because the there is a weight limit. If you go over a certain amount of poundage on your vehicle, then you have to have a DOT, Department of Transportation number, and a motor. I forgot the other number, and the insurance of that alone is $15,000 a year to start.
Wow.
So they're basically treating you like an interstate tractor trailer driver because of it doesn't matter what your cargo is. So I sold that right away, and then I was working out of a van, the van which I'm in with the vehicle, and I also have a motorhome that I bought that I completely gutted, and the dogs are able to be created in the motorhome.
Right. Okay. Which is really cool. Okay. So like, all right, so you have connections with the rescues and you go back and forth between Florida and Long Island often. So like, give us a for instance,
Okay.
I don't know, Nadine calls you and is like, hey, we got dogs, how does it work?
Nadine Nadine, I've transported dogs from her from the East Coast, Florida, and also I think Alabama and Arkansas. I know I picked up some dogs from her in Arkansas. She asked me, "Are you going?" Because with the retriever rescue, I used to go to Arkansas. I used to go to Louisiana and pick up anywhere from 10 to 20 dogs, and so I would notify Nadine, or she would ask me, "Am I going to out west anytime soon?" And basically, we would work up a schedule when I was going in next, and I would do pickups. Now, depending on how many dogs, I would enlist a helper. Sometimes that fell through because it may start out at 10 dogs, and by the time I get there, the day of the pickup, it turns out to be 15 or 20 dogs.
Yeah.
And now I'm shorthanded.
They're like, we got to ride. And everybody like starts calling and stuff, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've transport, and what happens is during the transportation, all the dogs are in a crate. If they can't be in a crate, most of the rescue dogs are always in a crate. A combination of the very kennel, which is the plastic ones, or wire crates. And the crates are also secured down. You can't just have a dog, and this goes for anybody transporting in your car in a crate. The crate isn't going to do you any good unless the crate is secured, because that crate, if you get into a car accident, is going to hurt you. It's going to hurt the dog. It's not going to do any good if it's not secured down. So you got to strap it down to the seat, to behind the seat, and it's the same thing with the dog that isn't crated.
Crated, right? Yeah.
People's personal pets. Tether them with a harness. You don't tether a dog by the collar. A rear clip harness you can wrap around the seat, or somebody's Kurgo, or you click it. I forgot the name of it. That one is the one that passed the safety tests. They're very good harnesses for the front seat, which I don't even recommend keeping the dog in the front seat, because that airbag goes off. It's going to hurt.
I was just going to say that airbag. Yeah.
And the tethering is just in case you don't realize, even if 10-mile-an-hour crash, that dog is a projectile. That dog is going to go through the windshield. It can hit you. It can hit an item and seriously hurt them. And I've done the same thing where if I'm going to a local beach, it's only 5-10 miles away. I don't do it. I'm guilty of the same thing. But if you're going on long trips on a parkway or whatever, everybody's been in an accident, and it's whether it's your fault or a majority of the time it's somebody else's fault. You never know what's going to come, and you always try and protect the dogs or any animal.
What's this Sleepypod? Do you know? Somebody put that. Are you familiar with that? Somebody said Sleepypod.
I don't know if that's the you click it.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking. That's what I put it up there in case anybody was interested.
That was one of them. One of the first ones that actually passed a crash test. I think they were used in Subarus in combination with Subaru. It's actually it could be used in the front seat. Kurgo is another one that did very well. A lot of these other.
My cat is like jumping all over the place. It's very distracting right now. Go ahead. Sorry.
A lot of these other harnesses, they're not tested. So and even your normal crates, it helps, but there's only a few of the crates that actually have been successful in crash tests, completely successful. And these crates cost $400 or $500. Gunner crates is one of them. It's a real heavy duty crate. They can range all the way up to $1,000 for a. Yeah.
So Rob, all this crate talk with your in the van and stuff in Florida to Long Island. What happens? Like, I mean, you don't drive straight through, right? Do you stop at a hotel overnight? Do you sleep in the car? What do you do with the dogs? Do they get out for a walk? What happens?
Walks are done at least every fuel stop, which it all depends on what vehicle I have.
Okay.
If it's a cargo van, you get about 14 miles to the gallon. It may be 4 hours, 4.5 hours. The same thing with the minivan. The motorhome only gets 6 miles to the gallon.
Yeah.
So stopping more often, but it's got a larger tank. Now, depending on what vehicle and depending on if I have help, that's when the dogs are walked. If I pull in, it depends on, like I said, how many dogs I have. It's taken me over 3 hours to walk some dogs sometimes. Because I
can imagine, right? I mean, they got to go out. So, yeah.
I've had over 25 dogs and didn't have a hand. So it was basically.
Pass is hitting my camera. Sorry. Sorry, go ahead. Malfunctioning.
It was I ended up, instead of normally leaving on a Thursday, I would leave a Wednesday, get there a day early because I knew I was going to be shorthanded just myself.
Okay,
stops, I pull in the rest areas at night.
Okay.
And that's when the dogs are fed, unless it's a puppy, and then they have to be fed during the transport. because you don't want them hypoglycemic. Their blood sugar can drop if they're very young puppies. I also stop if they have accidents in the crate.
I've heard of some dogs coming off transport, like really kind of yucky. I mean, I get it. Sometimes, it's one person and, they're trying to save these dogs. It's better than what they were living in.
Yeah,
But
I did a rescue run, one run for this one rescue from Alabama to Pennsylvania, and they wanted it done in 16 hours.
oof, okay.
And it could be done, but when I computed everything, I even had a helper. I said, that's perfect conditions. That's driving straight through, which I don't have no problem. I said, here's the problem. It doesn't allow me to walk. He says, no, we'll clean them up when we get home. I said, no, I don't work that way. The dog, that's why I'm in with the dogs. If I smell something, if I hear something, it's just a breeding ground for dogs getting sick.
Yeah. And also lots of times I would imagine they don't, it's like the same with the shelter when we have house trained dogs, right? So sometimes, right, don't they really typically not go where they are at, right? So, I mean,
it all depends on what dogs. I know a lot of the dogs, the puppies are more of a pain because they're not completely house trained yet. And even though I try and make it as stressless, the least amount of stress as possible. Transport's going to be stressed no matter what, especially on the rescue runs where there's multiple dogs, there's barking. They know when I'm pulling off the road, it's time for a walk, and it goes from most of the time very quiet to bedlam. I mean, because they know I'm pulling over, it's time for the walk, it's time to eat, and
we go volunteer as soon as you get down that when they're quiet. You open one kennel door and they know it's walk time. They are like, yeah.
After that first stop, they all know. And the puppies have more of a problem holding it, and they're a little bit more nervous. Sometimes, if we have siblings too, there's more than one dog in a crate. Now, I don't pack them in a crate. I'll go with a larger size crate. But what ends up happening is if you get one puppy in a crate that has an accident with multiple dogs in there, they all get messy. And so that's why, you got to stop as soon as you realize something's going on. The rest areas, if my RV was self-contained, bathroom, I disconnected the hot water, but I had my own water supply. And I sleep in the vehicle with the dogs unless it's a private transport or a transport with only a couple of rescues. If I'm over 3 or 4 dogs, I'm sleeping in a van with the dogs or whatever vehicle because you can't. Well, I did sneak in 6 dogs in a hotel, but that's the most.
That's kind of badass, Rob.
Yeah, no, and it's a pain because you really can't leave the dogs. I walk one dog at a time. You don't walk 2 dogs. Each dog is also double leashed. I double leash every dog. Every dog gets a slip lead because mechanical failure and they're wrapped most of the time either on one wrist or separate hands, just in case I fall, something like that. I don't want this dog getting loose, so I don't want the dog bouncing out of a collar or a harness. I always have a backup. Same thing with
what's the name of your transport again?
Highway Hounds Transport.
I'm gonna see if I have that picture, which I probably don't. Yeah, thanks for sending me all the pictures, Rob.
Sorry.
You know what? I was so busy today, I wouldn't have been able to anyway. And I don't have the picture on here, so I can't do it for you, but that's okay. So say it again. The name of your transport company is?
Highway Hounds Transport and Rescue.
Okay, so you do it for rescue, but you also do it for privates as well, like you just said.
Yeah, and the reason for the rescue is I opened it up. Initially, it was Highway Hounds Pet Transport. I changed the name because of it had to do with the DOT and everything else, and I ended up doing it with. I opened up myself as a rescue too. That's
Great.
Denise is with Lilo is one of my rescue dogs that I rescued down here, as is Daisy, Pixie and Daisy, and maybe about 5 or 6 dogs that I rescued from down here that weren't in good situations, or they were going to end up in bad hands.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Rob, that's one of the things that everybody loves about you so much is that, whatever you're doing, whether it's training or transporting or whatever, you're not in it for money.
No,
I mean, you genuinely love the dogs.
I've put a lot of my own savings into this that I'll never get back. And even with rescue, I did a Bahama rescue. That's when I first came down here. I think Second Chance New York City was involved in that because Jennifer deals with this woman named Shelly in the Bahamas, and that's when the hurricanes hit there.
Yeah.
So I picked the dogs up in I forgot where I picked them up. Fort Pierce, maybe. Fort Pierce, they came in. And
just fell on me.
And instead of I was supposed to take them up to New York, but I was speaking with them, and I said, listen, between a hurricane, a plane ride, and my transport, let me see if I can secure something overnight for a day or two. And I reached out to the local Humane Society by me in Daytona, and I showed up at midnight with all these dogs. I think there were 25 dogs at the time, and they took them in, took care of them. And in the meantime, they got a grant, and I didn't have to transport them the rest of the way. They got a private plane.
That's fantastic. Yeah. That's awesome. So, I know her, actually. She helped when I went to the Bahamas on a cruise, and there was a dog, and he was swimming, and everybody was throwing the bone with what do you call it? A stick with him. And I posted about him, and somebody else said that they had been there like a few weeks before and saw him, and she was on a cruise also, and she lived in upstate New York, and whatever, we ended up getting in touch with Chell, however you say her name. She's amazing, the Bahama girl down there. And this dog got on a plane, and these people rescued her, and he's living in not Niagara, somewhere, Rochester, something like that. Really, really cool stuff. So,
yeah, I've transported a couple of their dogs. I know the ones from the hurricane, and I think Jake's Rescue Ranch has taken quite a few from there, and I forgot some other rescues. But
Rob, do you see Sully is saying something here? Can you see it?
Hi, good peeps. Follow your steps on Facebook. You're a dog hero.
There you go.
Hey, Sully.
Show you that. Everybody loves Rob. All right. So anyway, so that's what all that transport, you do private stuff also. Now you said you're going back and forth between Florida and New York, but you have like a dream that you want to try to fulfill, right? What's that?
Well, we're myself and another rescue, beginning stages, and then a couple other people were possibly looking to open up a rescue down here, larger scale with few acres, where we do boarding, training, transporting. The transport wouldn't be. See, initially when I got into the transport, I thought I was going to be able to do it every other week, but it wasn't consistent. Sometimes I've done back-to-back 4 weeks out of a month straight, and it's ridiculous. And other times it may be once a month. We shut down a little bit during the beginning of COVID, and the problem with that was the dogs are being euthanized because no one was able to. They had to get these dogs out of the shelters. There was no one there to care for the dogs.
Care for them.
This was the initial outbreak where, what was it? It was right after March, I think.
Yes, March 22nd, I believe, was the actual shutdown date.
Yeah, it was March or April, and so right after that, we discussed. I said, "I'll do it," and we just took very strict precautions. Everybody was masked, social distancing. wiped. All the dogs are wiped down. They can.
Yeah, that's when we thought that you could like get it from that and stuff too. Yeah.
If I have COVID and I'm handing you off a dog, they can transfer it. It's unlikely, but there is a possibility.
Right.
There have been cases. So we're possibly looking at doing something larger scale, full time down here. I miss the training. I enjoy the transport. It put me up in New York with my friends and clients and new clients and older clients that I've become friends with, that we still have friends. Some of them still have dogs, some of them don't, unfortunately.
But there's that thing that brings people together with the dogs, right? Like when you share something with the dog, I have it at the shelter. They're not even anybody's dog, but we bond over a dog, you know?
Yeah, and we did an event at the Mineola Library that time. That public event was myself, Evie.
Are you talking about the Mineola Library when we were over there with that other group we won't name?
Oh, that was the other group?
That was the other group.
Oh.
But that's okay. It wasn't everything dog. Oh, okay. But that's okay.
Well,
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I am not a very social person. Very socially, I freak out. In fact,
Who believes that? Who believes that?
The only thing that I like this better than the in-person things. Now, when it comes to speaking with a client or potential client, because it's dog related and something that I'm passionate about, you know what? I'm able to get through it. But if it's like a social setting, forget about it.
Oh, like going to a wedding or, something like that, right? Or even that we wanted you.
Yeah, or that presentation.
Yeah, we wanted you to get up and speak. Yeah, yeah.
So it's and due to the dogs, the training or transporting, I'm able to be more comfortable with people. And like I said, I've made friends through clients and everything else that I probably get about close to a dozen calls a night, anywhere to 6 to 12, still regarding training, whether it's advice or whatever, for rescues or potential clients. Hey, are you still available? Then I'll recommend some of the other force-free
trainers. Yeah.
On the in the
everything dog group.
Yeah, in the group, in the file section. Section, I couldn't think of file.
Which, by the way, we don't get any kickback or anything. I was kind of accused of that the other day, and it's nothing like that. We simply just want to spread good, knowledgeable, resources and support. So yeah.
No, and I've worked with a few of I've worked with Evie, with Linda.
That's Evie, Linda Keene.
Right.
Some of the other professional trainers.
Yeah, and actually, and a lot of times you don't see trainers working together. They're all about themselves. You notice that on some of the other trainings. We come from different backgrounds, and I still remember when I first got involved with Evie and Linda, and I think even Anthony
Demarins. Yes,
there were. I forgot what rescue was, but it was these 6 or 8 puppies that were slated to be euthanized. That another trainer recommended to be euthanized. These puppies were barely 8 weeks old.
Yeah,
they showed signs of aggression even at that age, and we were just looking for a ray of hope during the assessments. Someone else had reached out to me, and then I reached out to Evie, and I didn't realize all the dogs were going to her Petco at the time, and that's where I met them. So I ended up getting 2 of them as clients, 2 of the dogs, and luckily, we caught it early enough where we were able to redirect that behavior. Because these dogs are truly, they were nasty puppies.
Without putting a shock collar on them or abusing them or scaring them or anything. You guys, that's wonderful.
I haven't, I haven't used any of the aversive methods since the 90s.
Yeah.
I can do the same. I can do the same as what I was doing with the other methods, and there's no risk of making the dog aggressive or worse. There was a time about 5 years ago where majority of all my cases were reactive or aggressive dogs. Oh, I'm going back to training again. Sorry.
That's okay. I'm gonna get you when you lull for a second. I know how to pull you back in. It's okay. Go ahead.
But the majority of I go there, and it was due to, you might have a rambunctious dog that was jumping or whatever, and this other training company would teach them their methods, and now all of a sudden the dog is worse. It's reactive. It's biting. It's going after the child or another dog, and it's due to the association of the punishment.
Yeah.
The dog is jumping on the child to get it to stop. They're using an e-collar, a shock collar, and now the dog is associating that. So we have to try and undo all of that, which is very difficult because the dog lost its faith and trust. You got to, there's no reason for it. There's never any reason for it.
Yeah. Which is kind of like, if we go back for a second about how you got on this, because you were saying that the force-free trainers that we recommend in the group kind of all work together, right? That's kind of what you were getting at. You guys all have like the same beliefs and training methodology.
I know they're not going to screw up a dog where screw up a dog or punish a dog. Even some dogs, and I've done board and train, and I'm one that normally doesn't recommend it because I like the owner to bond with that dog to develop that relationship.
Yeah.
And so how could you ever trust a board and train with a trainer that uses a shock collar or an e-collar, whatever you want to call it, because they're looking to get results and they'll do anything.
And they want quick results, and that's what happens. Yep.
And I've seen dogs come back petrified, absolutely petrified.
Yeah. There's the whole thing with body language, right? Like, and I don't even get it. That's why I video myself with the shelter dogs lots of times, because I'll show them to some of the trainers, like you mentioned, Evie or Sandy Adana or whoever. And they're like, oh, did you see that tail? And did you see this eye thing and that ear thing? And I'm like, God, no, I didn't see any of that.
Sometimes, even a trainer, it's been a great aid is home cameras, people videotaping their dogs, and even the home cameras, where I've come pretty close to getting nailed by a dog. And I go, I missed it. How did I miss it? And then I look back, and they happen to have a video feed. And I'm looking, I go, it was so minute. And I said, I missed it. And that's where even a person videotaping their dog through the camera phones, it helps the trainers. It helps because I know a lot of times I'll go to a house and they say, oh, the dog bites or nips anybody that comes into the house, and it doesn't do it with me.
Of course not, Rob, because all dogs love you.
There's been a few that wanted to make me lunch.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you say that too, because like when COVID, happened and nobody was going into people's houses, especially trainers, and then all of this like online training, remote training was happening. I was like, how does that work? That can't be like good. I was really skeptical and negative about it. And then actually I believe it was Anthony DeMarinis that explained it to me. And, it really, it's almost like a helpful tool. Like you said, you can see different behaviors that are happening when, a new stranger comes into the house, and they're either going to be worse or better or whatever. So,
I didn't do any remote while I was transporting. That's why. But any kind of training I was doing, I did do at their home. But we followed the distance and the
masking and
the masking and everything else. But there was a point where I wasn't doing any training because that was at the height again, that was at the beginning where there was,
Really, really scary.
yeah, it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
I mean, and the only thing that's come out of it, I think a lot of dogs have been adopted, and I haven't seen the big fall off of people returning a lot of pets. There have been some now that people have gone back to work, but a lot of
I
dogs
gotta tell
will.
you, at the shelter, even with the holidays, uh, it's not really filling up, you know? I mean,
No,
so, I
I,
mean,
I,
there's
I
always dogs, don't get me wrong, but, you know, I mean, compared to even previous years, you know, everybody buys puppies at the holidays, and then, you know, in February or March, they start dumping them, and I haven't really seen that yet as bad. So, you know, I agree. It's kind of weird. So let's just roll with it.
yeah, it seemed that I got a little bit of a. It seemed that we had a little bit of a lull now. That we, I mean, for a while there, I was doing 25, 30 dogs every week, every other week, and then it was, oh, we only got 5 dogs, and I can't do a trans. That's where I've cut back. I had a couple of private transports where people want their dogs or cats or birds, and birds too. No other dogs, no other pets can be on board. So naturally, they're paying like a premium because they're paying the majority of my fuel costs and everything.
Yeah.
It can't be spread out over 20, 25, 30 dogs.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course.
You asked me about stopping. Um, the RV was self-sufficient, bathroom, everything. When I'm by myself, I because of the runs, the transport runs, you become familiar with some of these stops, the rest areas.
Yes.
And a lot of these rest areas have security, and they also have other transports that sometimes pull in there. And it's also about timing. It all depended on which transport run it was. If it's just up the East Coast, or if I'm stopping in a hotel. If I'm staying in the vehicle, I'm able to enlist the help of the security to watch the dogs if I have to
That's
go.
awesome.
Yeah, and
That's really great.
yeah, because you don't want to leave the dogs alone. Even though
Yeah.
you got 2 sets of keys, you can leave the vehicle running, you can lock it up. I still didn't feel
A
comfortable.
lot of those places, though, they say no idling. Those rest areas, I've seen them because, like, I've had to do that too because I travel a lot myself, you know, with the dogs. So
They,
yeah, I got
they
to leave my
really
kid
don't.
in the car
Yeah,
with the dogs.
they really don't bother you. And I've stopped at some of the truck rest areas. I don't like them too much because of uh, they're not the safest places.
I was gonna say the traffic.
Yeah,
Whatever.
yeah, it's not the safest areas.
Yeah.
I feel more comfortable um, in the areas off of the interstates. Um, and a lot of people don't know this either. And you also got to watch the area. You have area stores like Walmart, and I forgot the restaurant name. They actually let people park in their parking lots overnight.
And sleep there. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Uh,
I think Walmart even has like places you can hook up your camper and stuff. They've got like electricity in the and all that kind of stuff.
yeah. Then also you also have to watch the area, and the people that are staying there.
Like going there. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so I used to pay the security a couple of bucks just if I had to relieve myself.
Yeah.
Other than that, then uh, it was feeding time, walk the dogs, get a couple of hours sleep. A lot of times it's just to shut the eyes and rest the eyes.
Yeah. If you're lucky, if they're not like making noise and stuff, right?
They're pretty good. I've been very lucky. Only a couple of times where I've had some unruly dogs where that I've actually pulled from one crate, put them closer to me within eyesight, and that didn't work. And I even had a couple of times where I had them secured in the front seat.
You just told me that about that little guy you had, right?
Yeah, the barking I'm able to shut out. I mean, I've been on phone calls or whatever, or I've even posted video of me with the dogs going crazy in the back. I'm able to, for the most part, shut it out.
Well, parents do that with their kids too. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
With the humans, Like, what do you mean my kid's crying?
Yeah, you got to know the type of cry that if the dog is in distress, and that's why I prefer to be in the van, in the vehicle with the dog, so I can hear him, see him, not in a trailer. And that's the reason why initially I started to transport, and it also put me back in New York. And I had an advantage because I've worked with dogs. Even if there are dogs that are so fearful, and it has nothing to do with the transport. It's whether there was previous abuse, genetics. There are already even puppies that are already, and you just got to take your time with them.
Yeah.
And for the most part, there's only been a handful. For the most part, even by the second stop, that dog I may take, instead of the 5 or 10 minute walk, that dog I may take 25 minutes, 30 minutes, because I don't want to rush it. But for the most part,
so you're technically a force-free transporter.
Yeah,
you really are. Yeah.
And I've done adoptions. Well, I've been part of the adoptions when off a transport. A lot of the other transports, it's just
like with Denise. She's saying Lilo rode shotgun.
Yeah, well, Denise was an interesting. Denise was supposed to be a foster. I had another. I had another client that was actually interested in her, and I thought he was adopting her, and that's why she was already on her way up. And I reached out, and Denise stepped up to foster, and yeah, she wasn't even 8 weeks old. I don't believe she was 8 weeks.
I met her, Lilo. I wish I had like pictures. I put them up. Maybe when I redo this, I'll throw some pictures up. I can edit it. People can see Lilo.
Her situation was.
Denise says it was a trap.
Yeah. and Sadie did so good. I mean, you couldn't ask for a better, bigger sister.
That's her German Shepherd, bigger sister. Yeah. So I want to see, because we're coming up to like an hour, believe it or not. So Rob, I want you to think if there was anything that you didn't touch on that you wanted to touch on, and also open it up if anybody's got any questions. Oh, Sandy's here. What is she saying?
Who?
Sandy Adana. She says, here, I'll put it up there. She says, love that, taking his time, because Rob really has in mind what is best for the dog. And happy Valentine's Day to you too, Sandy.
Happy Valentine's Day. Yeah, that's one thing I tell even the private transports mostly. It's difficult on a rescue transport because you got a number of pickup drop-offs. But when I'm doing a private transport, I did a couple back and forth to Florida. I said, I can't, and this is the same with the rescue. I can't control the weather. I can't control the traffic, and I can't control the dog. If the dog starts stressing out, I'm pulling over.
I love that.
I'm pulling over. I just did. Normally, I would do 12. So I can drive from New York to Port Orange area, which is where I am. It's straight through, anywhere from 15 to 18 hours, depending on traffic. Sometimes even 20. Okay. And if I got transports even further, I tend to stop overnight, whether it's Santee, South Carolina, Savannah, or I even stop at my house sometimes, and then I do the remainder of the trip. But if I tell them, if I see your dog stressing out after 5 hours, you know what, we're going to take longer walks. And if I got to make 2 days trips out of it, it's only their dog. Can't really do that with the rescue. Can't really do that with the rescue because you're dealing with 20, 30 dogs. If the dog is very stressed, or if I feel the dog is sick, then I mean, I was a half hour out of Louisiana pickup, and I had a puppy coughing. Called them up.
Oh yeah, you don't want to kennel cough in the van.
It ends up wasn't kennel cough. The puppy was allergic to my wee pads.
Oh really?
Yeah. Actually, it was more than one dog because they were fine after that, and so was the dog. It was just the wee pads that created a reaction. So
Right.
getting back to safety, and this goes whether you're transporting your own dogs. First of all, your dogs don't belong on your lap, and your dog's head shouldn't be out the window. You want to crack your window, that's fine. Your dog shouldn't be, its head shouldn't be out the window. One, an accident. If if you get into an accident with your dog's head out the window, and it will, well, first of all, they can get hit by a stone. I've gotten hit with my window open from a truck kicking up a rock and cut my forehead open. I wasn't even, my head wasn't even out the window.
Crazy.
And
Crazy.
so you got a number of things. They can get things in their eye, in their ears. They can cut. If you get into a minor, just touching the brakes, it's one thing that your dog goes flying. But if you get into a little fender bender, someone hits you, whatever, your dog is going to, it's not going to survive.
Right.
It's not going to survive.
I'm guilty of it too, but hearing you say all this stuff definitely makes me, kind of rethink all that. So yeah.
You've got a bunch of different areas you can tether a dog to. Like I said, you don't tether it. The tether it is so just God forbid you get into an accident. And how many dogs get, especially rescue dogs, the transporter gets into an accident, a small transporter in their personal vehicle, the foster. All of a sudden they get to an accident, the dog escapes. The dog wasn't.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, they take off.
It wasn't secure. Get a harness, get a rear clip harness, so the dog, in case, and tether it to something around the seat. The minivans have little hooks in the floors.
Right. Yeah.
My seats in a minivan fold flat, and then I have these like eye hooks, and it was great. I mean, I for the dogs the private transports that the dogs aren't good in the crates, I had bedding down there, and I was still able to hook them just in case there was an accident. The dog is
good. Yeah.
You can get hurt, and the dog can get hurt. And the dog can escape. And if a dog escapes on an interstate or a parkway, forget about it. And don't keep the heads in the window, nothing on the lap. See if you can tether them. If you put them in the crate, secure the crate. The crate has got to be secured. Otherwise, that crate's going to go flying and
bouncing all over the place. Yeah,
do damage to you too. You can plan out your trip. La Quinta, whatever it's called, pet-friendly hotel.
Yeah.
I just stayed
Which are actually really nice hotels. I've stayed in a few of them.
Yeah, I stay in one in
I'm not going to say really nice, but they're nice.
Yeah, I just hit one on the way up to Connecticut. My last time up, I checked in and I checked out. I think that was a previous hotel that they took over, and it was not good.
Rob, again, it depends on the area. I mean, you take 95 and you end up in some like backwoods town or something. You could have I stayed at a Ramada Inn once, and it was the worst thing ever. And I always thought Ramada was supposed to be nice, but it was like, like the sheets felt wet. It was just awful. I'll never forget that.
and you have to watch the time of the year too. Your North Carolina, South Carolina stops, especially during the spring and summer, a lot of these hotels are booked because of golf outings, because of tournaments. I couldn't believe it. And you also got weddings where they take over a whole hotel. And that's happened from anywhere from up and down the East Coast to, I did a pickup in Louisiana after the hurricane. Not realizing about the people that were displaced.
Yes.
And that was also where there was a gas shortage too. Remember the gas shortage? I had to make sure to fuel up 2 hours before I hit Louisiana, and that would enable me to get into Louisiana and out of Louisiana by 2 hours because they had no fuel in the area.
Yeah. One time my mom was living in Idaho, and we drove to Idaho, and took like 3 days or whatever. and you don't know where you're going to exactly stop. So we ended up stopping someplace, and it was that Sturgis, I think it was, that motorcycle thing. It was, you had to like drive out of the state to get like a hotel. It was, and at that point we were already tired. And, I mean, it was a mess. So yeah, you really do. Yeah. Especially if you've got the dogs and stuff, you need to, or children, yeah, you got to really make sure that you plan accordingly.
Yeah, and you always look at the weather. I have weather apps that I try and keep an eye on. These people, that last storm in D.C., they got stuck for Fredericksburg was a town I would sometimes stay in on the way if I was heading up to New York, which it's northern Virginia, right, exit 130. They got stranded in their cars for 24 hours.
Uh-huh.
Because of the ice and the snow. They weren't used to it, and you got to watch for flooding and everything. Yeah, so you try and plan out your trip, and just don't go by the hotel. Look at the reviews.
The reviews are big.
Yeah,
I learned that on Amazon.
That's no matter where you travel. I did that going to Disney World when I was much younger, and I stayed in Orlando. Orlando's big, and Orlando was an all theme parks. It can be some very dangerous areas.
Yeah.
So I pulled into the thing, and I didn't get any sleep that night. That was when I was young and foolish, and I ended up staying.
Right? Yeah, you just drive tired, whatever.
Yeah.
So, all right. So, I think we're gonna have to wrap it up. But, okay. Does anybody have any questions? Oh, Laura Marino says that she had the Pup Saver car seat for Nolan.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there was something else. Okay. So are you currently doing any training now in New York or no?
Sometimes when I come up, I'll see an old client, like for an existing.
But like if somebody's looking for training now, it's not really,
It all depends on what they're looking for. If it's, and this is what the people have contacted me. If they're looking for like the extended sessions, like once a week, I won't do it. I'll pass that on. If they're looking for something with like a house training, a lot of times I just try and help them over the phone.
Yeah. Again, that's there's kind of certain protocols, right? For like regular stuff like that. Yeah. It's not like it's a huge behavior case or, separation anxiety or whatever.
No, and the separation anxiety I pass on to Linda.
Linda.
She's
Linda Keene, separation anxiety specialist. Yeah.
And even if it's like your normal, majority of the time that you get called, aside from like behavior issues where it's aggression issues, reactivity, your normal time you get called is either the dog pulling on a leash or jumping. And which are, to me, very easy corrections. And it's a shame the jumping normally stems from the people reinforcing the behavior when the dog
promoting it and stuff. Yes. Yep.
And then when the dog gets bigger, they don't want the dog to jump, which is of course it's an easy fix, and you don't need any kind of aversive method. So something like that, I will actually I work with them on the phone. Try this. If you're not getting it, then we can set up a session. And a lot of times it's one session. A lot of times they have to see you, and this is the way I did it. You're teaching the client, the human, because you can't be there all the time. You're teaching them what to do. But I'll go through to see what works with the dog, how he or she responds. And it says, okay, this is what you're going to do. And it's all about timing too. Right. Training is big on timing as far as reward. And that's where some people can use a clicker, some people can't, because I've had clients where they're fumbling around for that clicker and you've already missed the opportunity to reward. So you can just use the marker yes instead of the clicker.
Yeah.
I still do training when I'm able to come up to New York, and I have the time too. That's another thing, because sometimes I come up, I'm doing an evaluation here, there, helping with a meet and greet. or saying hello to some people or family.
Yeah. Or somebody maybe gets a new dog and you've already worked with them with their other dog, or, and they know you. So yeah. So, future for Rob is basically, what is she saying? Put us on the calendar for a visit. See, everybody just wants to see you, Rob. They want to see you with their dogs.
Yeah.
They're not asking you to go out to dinner with them. They're asking you to come over and love on their dogs.
I just came across more Lilo puppy pictures too.
I love it. So, all right. So, anybody have any questions out there? I mean, Rob, we could go on and on and on, but Denise says she'll cook for you. But yeah, I think that, in the future we'll have more conversations and we can, talk about this more, Rob. I think that you're not as socially inept as you feel you are.
No, it's a lot different. This feels like more of a one-on-one conversation with you. So that's why it's
with
different.
Stalkers. We have stalkers, but that's okay. But all right. So future for Rob is you're going to continue doing your transport. You're still involved with rescue, and hopefully we'll see a facility, which I'm very sad to hear that it would be in Florida and not New York. But if it works out, maybe. Huh?
Can't afford New York.
I know. But who knows? Maybe one day it would work out. I don't know.
Yeah,
so,
maybe if it works out down here, we'll open up a franchise.
Yeah, that would work. I'd get in on that. So, all right. Leslie's going to have a private conversation with you about a dog that she wants to adopt.
Again?
Oh, and somebody's saying they desperately need help down in Florida, which I think that they do actually. Florida's Florida.
Yeah, Florida is big on intact dogs, aversive methods.
Right. I mean, yeah.
That's another thing. We touched on it briefly, real quick. You got some really horrendous shelters.
Oh, yes. Good point.
North, like ACC and things like that. And this is where a lot of the rescues take dogs from the South. ACC is a country club compared to the shelters down south. It's horrendous.
I just want to interrupt really quick before you say that, Rob. The reason he's saying this, everybody, is because when he and I were chatting yesterday, we were talking about how some people get, like, oh, don't adopt a dog from down south, and we've got enough of our own dogs here, and blah blah blah. And this is when Rob started giving some enlightenment on really the conditions. So go ahead, Rob. You were saying, like, in comparison, like the crappiest place up here technically would be the ACC.
Yeah.
And how in comparison,
well, that's one of the worst ones I've seen. One of the worst known, I should say, but there's some of the privately run humane societies, or I think there was even a temporary shelter where they were using a hangar at an airport. But some of them are free feeding open fields where the dog are constantly fighting one another. They're euthanizing 8-week-old puppies, and they will euthanize because of space. They don't have the $1 million budgets that New York has on the island, multi-million-dollar or $1 million, whatever their budgets are. They're lucky if they can keep 10 dogs. 10 dogs, and Louisiana is like that. There's also I forgot what county in parish in Louisiana. Any pit bull that comes off a stray hole gets euthanized.
Yeah,
and I
think it's more than just there. I think that's a problem, right? I mean, I've heard of that in other places too.
Texas is very bad. I haven't done. There was talk that I was going to go into Texas on a couple of runs, but it just didn't work out. I can't go to Texas for 2 dogs. It's
a lot.
I cannot, as much as I like to, I cannot do these transports where it's costing me money.
Rob, speaking of that, do you by any chance take donations? Like, or is this a 501 or something, and people can donate to the cause for you?
It was initially Highway Hounds Pet Transport was not set up initially as a nonprofit. That's when I switched over to, for tax purposes and also for transport purposes. That's when I switched over to, and I wasn't able to rescue dogs as that. That's when I switched over to Highway Hounds
Okay.
Transport and Rescue, which was a 501c3, but I am going away from that again because it's just a lot more to deal with tax purposes. I'd rather just, it's a lot more involved.
Yeah. Okay. That's fine.
I don't, you know what, I could go into the, where the, what do they call that? The grant writing, where a lot of these rest. I don't have time for that. I was trying to get set up as quickly as possible to start doing transport runs to get the dogs from the south, to get going as quickly as possible. And I goofed initially because, like I said, I ended up going out and purchasing a shuttle bus, which I didn't even know at that time the rules and regulation. I'm also USDA licensed. And that means I follow a certain protocol.
That's great.
Yeah. As far as there are inspectors that inspect the vehicles. There's also, you have some rescues that are also doing, and people, you try and help. You got to turn the blind eye because they're trying to rescue dogs, but a lot of them are doing it illegally. You're not supposed to be going into some of these states with a dog because they have quarantine laws.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Rhode Island? No. I forgot what it was now. Yeah, where you have to go into a quarantine facility overnight. With these dogs. These dogs are not to be, like, if I did a run.
Is that because of coronavirus, you're saying, or?
No, this is USDA. Why? Because transports are transporting sick dogs.
Yeah.
When I go into Florida and when I go out of Florida, there's what's called an agricultural stop. A lot of people don't even know this.
Yeah, I didn't know, and I've driven to Florida a million times. So
you're in a moving truck. You're in everything. You're supposed to stop. Not a personal vehicle, but if you're moving down to Florida and they ask you if you have any fruit or trees or animals, they don't want things brought in and they don't want things brought out. So you're supposed to stop and you're supposed to have documentation, veterinary certificate, which shows the dog. Anytime you go interstate, you're supposed to have a veterinary certificate, showing that the dog is healthy and fully vaccinated.
Right.
Or vaccinated up to that age. There's also regulations about dogs flying in from other countries. This is a big issue. Dog, and I've been questioned on this, a dog is not supposed to be coming into this country if it's less than 6 months of age.
Really? That's very interesting. Who knew?
Yeah, and you have vets from other countries now doing correct documents.
Okay. Yes. Okay.
You know what? Is it for the better? These dogs would perish, but it's and that's where you know what is it? You're also exposing more dogs to diseases here. You look at all the New York. I speak to vets too. New York has more cases of heartworm now. You know why? Heartworm wasn't very common in New York. Is because the dogs are being brought up from the south.
Okay.
And
yeah. Well, there's that parvo. I'm hearing about parvo all over the place.
Parvo, and there's even new strains of parvo, which I came across one of those on a transport. And that's where I'm also very careful about the dogs interacting. I had dogs, 2 dogs pass away, but it wasn't anything. It came from where the dogs initially came from. Oh, that's another thing. I will not transport a dog right out of a shelter.
Oh, yeah, you did say that. Yes. You have your own little quarantine kind of rule, right?
Yes. I'm not going to expose puppies, especially puppies. If I have a number of puppies on board, I'm not going to expose them to dogs right out of a shelter, because even though that dog's not showing signs of kennel cough or whatever, doesn't mean it doesn't have it and it can't transmit them. So I'd like the dog to be at least 10 days to 2 weeks out of a shelter.
Denise is a little blown away by so much detail. She had no clue, she's saying. Denise. She's like, there's so much, she had no clue. I didn't know a lot of this stuff either.
Yeah. It's
you're not just getting in a car and driving a dog from Florida to New York,
No.
Yeah.
And it's a bunch of people. It's rescues up north that deal with a lot of great people down and rescues down south.
Mm-hmm.
They all work together.
Side note, I got my cat. He's from Kuwait.
Yeah.
He's because Meredith Festa with Paws Unite People deals with, I forget her name, forgive me, but from Kuwait, and they have like this designer cat issue, and but very much like our puppy mills, and they rescue them from Kuwait and they come over here. So my cat actually has a passport.
Yeah, I was actually supposed to. Speaking of, I was being sponsored to go to China for the from a gentleman that devotes his career, his life now to pulling the dogs there. He was a jewelry designer, and he basically left it all out behind and now does all of this. And I evaluated
Denise.
What happened? I'm running long?
No, Keith, I'm just like, Denise is sending me a message about my cat. Sorry, go ahead.
So I investigated a potential abuse case. It was the woman, adopter, her son, that was accused of it because the dog got loose and these two people caught the dog. And when the guy was taking the dog back home, the dog bit him.
Oh.
And from 100 yards away, what looked like he was hitting the dog, he was actually pulling his hands out of the dog's mouth. The SPCA also investigated it. They found no cause for it. We watched the interaction afterwards. And this is a dog that came from, a lot of these dogs have very severe behavior issues.
Yeah.
And so in return, he wanted me to work. He's got basically like a shelter over there, and he wanted me to come check it out.
In China. Amazing.
And not go on these rescue runs. That's out of my realm. At the time, I was married. And also I would be set up here to work with all of their adopters. I would basically be going to the primary adopters were New York, Chicago, and California. And I would go all across the country helping, like setting up things. But it ended up, I can't focus on one rescue.
Right.
And it just didn't, it couldn't.
No, well, you've got kind of connections and ties all over the place. Like, I don't picture you telling somebody no, like you're not the exclusive guy. You're Rob, or you do your thing,
Yeah. And I don't like working for people.
Yeah.
I can work with people. I don't like working for people. I've done this long enough where I know what works for me.
Yeah.
And one negative thing about the transport, and this is where we're hoping to do something down here. I miss my dogs.
Yeah, well, it's a long time that you're gone. So
and when I'm away, and even when I come back, it creates behavior issues.
Yeah.
In my own dogs. My dogs act differently around me, around my ex-wife, around my pet sitters, and I'm anal when it comes to them. This is what you got to do.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, if I'm away for a week here, a week there, and then I come back, it takes them about a week or 2 weeks to adjust.
And then you're like off again.
Yeah, so that's why I want something a little bit, possibly looking for a little bit more stable, where maybe I would just do once a month, or like one large transport.
Yeah.
And
Well, it'd be great if you could get, if people were on board with it or something, and you could get somebody else to, help out also and maybe take a run for you or something.
well, that was the whole initial plans, was to do the transport, grow, train someone.
Yeah.
I have and had a good helper. But I don't know, maybe a control freak that way, especially
Well,
when
yeah, a lot of people, especially in rescue, I mean, that's how
especially
it
when
goes.
it comes to dogs. Yeah.
Yeah. You know what though, Rob? we're going to have to go just because I got to like feed my family.
Okay. Yeah, anybody can call for questions, even dog training or transport questions and things like that.
I'm also going to, this is going to roll over. We're going to put it on a podcast, and it will also end up on the YouTube channel. And when we repost and stuff, we can put like links for, how to get in touch with you, and we'll put your business card up there and, all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, you and I'll talk about that, and we'll add it all in and stuff.
Yeah. I hope everybody has a happy Valentine's Day.
Oh yeah, happy Valentine's Day. It was great spending time with you on Valentine's Day. Now we can all go snuggle with our dogs.
Yeah, they're all sleeping.
Go ahead, show us. This is like the big grand finale.
That's Luke. He's available. That's a road to home dog. That's Storm.
Oh wait, go back, because Leslie said she wanted a big-headed yellow lab. That's
not
close enough.
Leslie and Luke is not a cuddler. Very fearful dog. And how did you get Leslie? That's Storm. Here's Churro.
Look at Churro stretching. He's like, "Are you done chatting yet, Dad? Shut up."
This is Libby. She's also available.
Who's that, Libby?
That's Libby, right, Libby? It's another fearful pup. Hey, baby.
Adorable. Rob, thank you so much. This was really awesome. We'll be chatting with you again. We want to hear life and times of Rob, so we can keep up with you and see what's going on. And I just want to say thank you very much for all you do for the dogs.
Oh, it's nothing.
Tara,
thanks for having me.
Tara, you're going to have to get in touch with him yourself on that one, honey. Tara wants to know if you got room for one more.
Yeah.
We're all going to help you out with that, Tara. Don't worry. It's fine. Yeah. It's going to be okay. All right, Rob. So, great. Thank you. Happy Valentine's Day. Hopefully you'll get yourself a treat afterwards. Now my other dog just came down. They're like, I know. They're like, we're hungry. We're going to eat. All right, Rob. Thank you so much. And thank you everybody for tuning in. And that's that. Thanks for joining.
Take care.
Bye. Thanks so much.